Hi everyone, Anders Ibsen from Windermere Professional Partners, here with my good friend Amy Remington from Guild Mortgage. Hi Amy.
Hey everybody.
Hey, we are here to talk about VA loans for multifamily. That's a thing.
It's an absolute thing.
Tell me more.
VA homes are wonderful and everybody's very familiar with a single family VA transaction, and this should be something that is pretty much something you could Google across the board. But what's a little known fact or information that VA has but isn't published as much is that you can purchase a primary residence, 2 to 4 family, live in one unit and rent those other units out and have that be an investment for you and your family as you go on down the road in your life.
So you can buy a duplex or even up to a fourplex anywhere in this area, and you could pay a down payment of what exactly?
So VA requires zero down. Everyone knows that. But did you know you could still also do zero down with 2, 3, or 4 unit properties? That is absolutely a thing.
And for reference, based on a cursory market search, it's Q1 2021 as of this video. Your typical duplex in Pierce County is about $500,000. It's kind of pushing into the $500,000 range. Fourplexes are well past $800,000. So Amy, you're saying that you could buy an $800,000 fourplex potentially for nothing out of pocket or close to nothing out of pocket.
That is correct. So the only caveat to that, and we'll probably get to this a little bit later, but if you have used your entitlement previously, VA allows you a specific amount of entitlement. So how much you can buy at zero down, they articulate that with a number. And if you've never used your entitlement before, technically, in Pierce, King, and Snohomish County, you're able to go up to almost $1.6 million without a down payment. Now, that being said, if you have used your entitlement before, for example, if you had a home in Texas or Tennessee or some other location you were stationed, and you used part of that entitlement, chances are you would have to have a down payment on the next purchase if it was a multifamily, but it would be a lot less than you're probably thinking.
So what does that look like in real dollars, in your experience?
So we've done quite a few of these, and Anders is excellent at this.
Okay.
It takes a specific skill set to understand not just these properties, but the loans. So having a team that's experienced really, really helps. That being said, I've seen clients come in with as little as $5,000 to $10,000, depending on how much of their entitlement they've utilized. We've had clients come in as much as $30,000, $40,000 on a higher end purchase like that. Still, where are you going to be able to purchase an investment property of that quality and caliber with that kind of an investment? It's almost unheard of.
So for reference, your typical 2-bedroom apartment in Tacoma now, you're seeing market rent of like what, $1,400, $1,500, give or take?
Yeah, I would say that's probably fair.
So you're looking potentially at buying an asset that down the road is going to gross you $5,000 or $6,000 per month for almost nothing down to nothing down.
That's correct.
Where else does that happen?
It doesn't. It doesn't. What's beautiful about this is the rule. The rule is that when you purchase this property, your intention needs that you're going to buy and own or occupy one of those units for at least the next 12 months. That's it. Most of my veteran clients, most of my individuals that have VA entitlement, they sometimes are in a transition space. They're not sure if this is where they want to live forever, or maybe they want to move to Hawaii or whatever. But if you're going to be here, you might as well secure a multifamily property, because not only are you going to be getting appreciation as the value increases, but you're going to be receiving rent to offset that monthly expenditure. So basically, house hacking.
Yeah, free housing, basically, if your renters are paying your bills for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of people, in my experience, are not just veterans. A lot of people are active service members who move from place to place based on their orders. And I've dealt with people who are buying here in the Pacific Northwest who might have rentals in the Deep South, or might have rentals in the Midwest, and they just build up their portfolio as they move around. And then when they leave the service, they have this amazing cushion to help them with their transition to whatever job they want to do next.
It is beautiful. If you have your life planned out, and I'm jealous if you do, but if you do have your life completely planned out, and you know what your next step is if you're going to be transitioning out of the military, maybe in 5 to 7 or 10 years, or whatever your time frame is, using Anders' approach and securing a multifamily property, let's just say you don't need the monthly income, then just plow that money to pay down that principal balance And at the end of the day, if you treat it like a 15-year transaction, you'll end up with the mortgage paid off in 15 years. If you want to be more aggressive, you could even do more so. And then you go 5, 10, 15 years down the road, and you have multifamily properties with no mortgage on them. That is cool.
And just consider appreciation, since you mentioned that, Amy. So here's a fun fact. Despite the fact that we've had COVID restrictions on rentals, so ever since a year ago from the filming of this video, back in March 2020, when the stay-at-home order, not only stay-at-home order was enforced, but pretty vigorous regulations on landlord-tenant behavior. So being forbidden from raising rent on your tenants, being forbidden from most kinds of evictions. You would think that that would pretty adversely affect the value of these properties. But I just recently did a market survey, and it turns out that, get ready for this, the appreciation on 2 to 4 unit properties in Pierce County from March 2020 to March 2021. This is when the stay-at-home order began, 27.5%.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So the average
Wow.
single-family appreciation was about 15, which even then, that's insane. So you're looking at not only potentially free housing and making lots of cash forever down the road, but you're looking at an appreciation rate that's virtually double what you're seeing in single family, which where else do you see that? For nothing out of pocket.
Right. It's just one of the coolest nuances that VA home loans offer that a lot of individuals maybe don't even talk about because they've never even thought about, I don't want to have a rental, I don't want to have a duplex. But think about, maybe not this red hot minute, but just think maybe 12 months down the road or 24 months down the road. What do you want your life to look like? What do you want your investment portfolio to look like? And how can you set your family up for success, not just in an income standpoint, if you do decide to keep the transaction or the property long term, but what if, based on what you're saying, what if you want to sell it in 2 years? Based on the data that we have, you're going to be better off with a multifamily purchase than you would with a single family.
Oh, and the data shows that. To return to that example, let's say you bought a duplex for $400,000. That was duplex land a year ago.
Sure.
March 2020, $400,000 duplex. That same duplex, if nothing changed to it, if you had the same renters, if you had the same improvements there, would be selling for $510,000 March of 2021. So you made $110,000 in free money just by owning it for a year.
Yeah.
Where else do you see that?
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not a tax professional. I'm a loan girl. So make sure you talk to your tax advisor about how capital gains works and how all of those aspects go into play. But I think what the point you're making, if I may, is your next step could be substantially better for you if you choose a multifamily versus a single family, just based on hard facts.
Yeah. So, Amy, to take advantage of this program, do you have to have amazing credit like in the 800s or really good credit in the 700s? Or what are we looking at to be able to even use these kind of loans?
So VA home loans are one of the most lenient. And the reason why is you've served or you're serving our country, so it needs to be one of the coolest loans. It should be, because you put yourself in harm's way to get there. It allows us a lot of flexibility on credit. Our minimum at the time of this filming is 600, and usually our multifamily clients see an approval somewhere in the 620 to 640 range because it's a little tiny bit more risky. So it goes through an automated underwriting engine. There's a big robot that looks at all the data, knows a lot more than we do. And
Amy has all the robots.
It looks at all the possibilities, and usually a 620 to 640 is what we need.
Based on recent changes to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, it sounds like there are going to be more painful down payment requirements for some of these investment loans, but that may be different if you're owner occupying, like with a VA loan, right?
That 100% correct.
How does that work?
If you're owner occupying with a VA transaction, then you get owner occupied rates. You get the zero down option. There is no change there. But if you go to me or your lender and you say, "Hey, Aim, I want to buy a duplex and I want to put zero down," that's not a thing if it's not your home. It would have to be a minimum of 20 to 30% now, starting in just a month or so.
Yeah. That's a pretty big drag.
Yeah, and the rate would be incrementally larger,
Yeah.
like a full point higher
So
than a VA.
what kind of rates are we seeing for VA for buying 2 to 4 units currently?
So right in this red hot minute, of course, at the time of this recording, right now we're in the 3s. So you can still get a little bit below 3, but we're mostly in the 3.25 space. Still spectacular to buy a house. The best time to have bought a property would have been on January 4th. But of course,
right.
Hindsight is 20/20. Just like when you're going through a roller coaster, you don't see the bottom until you're through it.
Hindsight is literally 20/20.
It
in this
literally
case.
is.
Right.
So in this situation, that would have been the perfect time to lock in an interest rate. But really, as an investor, as a client that's looking to purchase a property that's going to be an investment property down the road or something that you're going to sell, of course interest rate's important, but it's not tantamount to your decision the same way as it would if you're trying to stay within a specific budget, because you do have other rent that's going to help offset your expenditures.
Sure. So basically 3% interest rate on your loan for an investment property that's making you thousands of dollars, $5,000 or $6,000 in today's dollars, that's basically free money, right?
Yeah.
For having a credit score that's maybe in the 600s and paying potentially nothing out of pocket to get it.
Yep.
Other than maybe closing costs, which you can ask the seller to pay.
That's correct. That's correct. Now, in a competitive market, and right now we're in this frothy seller's market where there's a lot of buyers and there's not as many sellers, there's not as much inventory. So in that experience, if you do have funds in reserve, if you do have funds for closing costs, your offer is going to be stronger and it's going to be easier for Anders and I to get your offer accepted on a property. As that market shifts, we will be able to see a little bit more participation. Also, an excellent real estate agent like Anders is, if when you go through an inspection contingency, sometimes instead of having things done on a home, Anders will send me over a thing and say, okay, they're going to take on these 2 concerns, but the seller's going to contribute towards closing costs, net reducing your cash outlay. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, the more money you have going into this, the more options you have and the more competitive you are in a strong seller's market. But at the end of the day, if you don't need it, you have money in reserve, and that's not a bad thing.
So you mentioned competitiveness and how to be a really strong contender in today's really shortage-driven seller's market. So one of the primary things you can do is just select a really awesome lender, someone who's responsive, who will actually return your calls promptly, who will actually lobby on your behalf to the listing agent and talk about what a strong borrower you are, and who just has a really strong team at their disposal with a good appraisal team, a good underwriting team, and just a really solid system in place. But in your experience, Amy, who do you think the strongest VA borrowers are for these kinds of products? What can someone who's thinking of entering the market maybe in a couple months really do to put themselves in the strongest position to compete and to win that property?
So that is an awesome question. So any money you can have saved up as a cushion or reserve is going to make you stronger. A 2 to 4 family property is going to require a few months of payments in reserve. So having that extra money, it could be in an IRA or a 401k, it could be in a different investment vehicle. It doesn't necessarily need to be in your checking and savings account, but you definitely want to have some funds available. Having some funds available for a strong earnest money deposit makes a really big difference. If you're making an offer on a $500,000 duplex, have some money, $5,000, $6,000, $10,000 set aside for earnest money to show the seller that you mean it. Hey seller, I earnestly want to buy your house.
Yes.
So that's really, really helpful. Also, minimizing debt if you can always be helpful in giving you some flexibility in your pricing. And for goodness sakes, please get pre-approved at least 30 days before you want to start looking. And the reason why is, as Anders mentioned, a strong lender is going to go in there and verify your income, verify your assets, do the background work. There's so much to the backside of loans that you don't know. Trust me, you don't want to know because it's not very fun. But we do so much, almost forensic work. We go deep into the files more than you ever could imagine to make sure that when you are going in with Anders and saying, I want to purchase this property, that I can, without a shadow of a doubt, say this buyer will close on time and that you're going to be getting the property for the payment and the price that you're expecting. That's the most important thing. So getting ahead of that will save you so much heartache and stress. That's what we're here for, is to coach you through that process.
So prepare yourself financially, pay off debts you can, and just choose a really awesome operator who knows the market, knows what they're doing, and runs your numbers before you're even seeing the property, so that both Amy and your agent can, without a doubt, tell the selling party that this person's been put through the ringer, the underwriters have seen everything, you're going to be fine. One other thing I'd like to talk about real quick is something that you can really do in today's market that we're seeing is accounting for low appraisals. So there are a lot of new price points that we're seeing in the market, and as an appraiser myself, sometimes there are challenges that I've seen wearing my appraiser hat or just my agent hat is when maybe there's a new price point, and sometimes the appraiser can't find the comps to justify the price.
So
what we're seeing increasingly in these bidding situations, and this goes back to cash reserves, is there's a neat little form you can include called the 22AD low appraisal form. Amy sees it a lot increasingly. And basically what that means is that in the event of a low appraisal, you are promising to increase your down payment up to a certain threshold to account for that. And that's one of many things, and it's way less risky than just flat out stupid things like waiving your inspection. Please, for the love of God, don't do that. Your agent is, if they're really looking out for your best interest, is going to try to talk you off the ledge in that respect. But that's one thing that Amy, you've probably seen that more, and that can win bidding wars a lot of times, can't it?
Yeah, most assuredly. So a 22AD just says, hey, if the house doesn't appraise or the property doesn't appraise for what we're looking for, then I'm cool with coming in a little bit more. And what's great about the AD form is it clearly articulates exactly how much. It's not like you're giving them a blank check or anything crazy like that.
And there's two magic words, up to.
Up to, exactly.
If you're promising to increase your down payment maybe $10,000 more, but the appraisal comes in $5,000 low, then you're not paying $10,000 more.
Correct.
And need I say that you're only paying a 0% down payment. So
Right. So that there's another cool thing that VA has. I get really excited about VA.
Sure.
It's like the best loan. But one of the coolest things they have is what's called Tidewater. And Tidewater means, and it sounds like it has
like
to do
you're going
with,
fishing.
But it really has nothing to do with that. Ages ago, there was a new home subdivision. It was called Tidewater. And Tidewater was this amazing home subdivision in the South. And the homes there were selling for so much more than all of the neighboring communities. They were all coming in low. And so VA transactions were blowing up and the world was ending. And they said, we got to do something about this. So they named the process of dealing with a low appraisal Tidewater. Now, VA does this, but no other loan does this. This is kind of cool. So the VA appraiser goes out and they do their things and they say, okay, the data is not supporting this value. They're required to stop, contact me. I reach out to the real estate agents and say, hey guys, we have a concern with value. Do you have any additional data? Are there new comparables? Is there new information that you can bring forth? So we have an opportunity to assist that appraiser in coming up with the value that we're looking for or that the purchase price has. And if it's not there, it's not there. We can't manufacture data, but if it is there, or if there's a recent sale, if there's new information, VA appraisals can actually be an advantage over FHA and conventional transactions.
Yeah, and that's a complete seller misperception that VA appraisals
100%.
are this big scary thing. What you're saying is that there's actually greater flexibility to reverse a low appraisal situation so that neither the buyer nor the seller has to either eat a higher down payment or a lower purchase price, meaning that you're in a stronger position to compete.
Exactly, and this guy who has an appraisal background, he can speak appraiser, so if you're gonna have a Tidewater situation or if you're gonna have a low value situation, this guy is the guy to have in your court, because he can talk appraiser and it's beautiful because it's like a language.
Oh. Well, you talk a lot of great robot language too yourself, Amy, so thank you for that. So it looks like we're out of time, but this has been so fun. We could yammer about this stuff all day.
All day.
Amy Remington from Guild Mortgage for all of your financing questions. If you're thinking about pursuing this down the road, it's an amazing financial opportunity. You need a good guide and advocate, and that's what Amy is. Andrews Ibsen, Windermere Professional Partners, signing out. Call, text, email anytime. Love to hear from you.